Hey everybody, here is a cheap power supply that came out of that Acer Aspire computer part system that was really filthy inside. You can tell looking at this power supply case that computer was filthy. But surprisingly, that computer actually worked. Motherboard was fine, other than one failed capacitor. But this power supply here is really cheap, and I'm going to do a video on this to show you guys what those geeks.com specials are like. Geeks.com has a bunch of these power supplies. I think they have other brands like, I don't know, I can't exactly remember the brands off the top of my head, but they had some weird brands, names I'm not familiar with. And many of these power supplies were like $10 to $20. Some of them claiming to have like up to like 1,000 watts, and I think every single one of them had the voltage selection switch on the back, telling you that it was an active PFC. So that being said, let's go ahead and take the cover off of this Chiefmax power supply. Yeah, I could tell it's a Chiefmax just by looking in the side and the back. That is a Chiefmax. This thing is pretty light. Not the lightest I've ever seen, but it is pretty light. Let me show you that spec label. I almost forgot to show it to you. Power supply was manufactured in June 2008. So makes me wonder how old the original computer was when it got this piece of crap. But anyways, there's our specs. Make sure you got good focus here. Pause, view specs. So that being said, let's go and take the cover off and see what this thing is actually designed to do. This thing is so filthy. I'm going to clean off my desk and everything, let alone wash my hands when we go after working with this thing. Alright everybody, let's go ahead and have a look. Here's your dead bug right there on the fan. This thing here is definitely not all that special. There's your Chiefmax. Or practically better speaking, a PowerMax Leadman. That's really the OEM. I just called it a Chiefmax because I'm sure some of you have probably seen my original Chiefmax power supply video. It was pretty much just as bad as this. Probably the only good thing this thing has to speak about is it actually uses optocouplers for feedback. There's your 5-volt standby transformer. There's the main transformer. Look how small that thing is. That is pretty bad. Let me go grab you a quarter. Yeah, 25 cents. Let me show you how big that transformer is. This is a good comparison because I'm sure many of you guys have to go no further than your pocket to get a quarter. There's your quarter. There's a transformer. Look at the size of that transformer versus that quarter. Can you say epic fail? And here's our primary capacitors. These are Ching. I believe, yeah, 470 microfarad. I'm curious if that's actually the real capacity of those capacitors. There's a likely chance it may not even be that. And of course, we had the 4 diode treatment for rectification. However, they did opt to use decent quality diodes on at least 2 out of 4 diodes here. And of course, no No sort of filtering at all over here. We have one white capacitor at the very back. That's the only one. No X capacitors, no coils, none of that. So no EMI filtering. And let's go ahead and spin around and have a look over here. This thing might have IC 5V standby. This thing is so cheap it only has one switching transistor. Now that's actually common in some quality power supplies, but that one single transistor you'll find in those units is much bigger than this. Let me grab a flashlight so you can see that better. Oh, there's one right here. Can't really see the print, but let me go ahead and brush that off. Try that. It's probably a 13007. That'd just be my guess. I can't really see. I can't see the print on the transistor. Actually, that right there on the very side might be our 5V standby transistor. And if that is, that's a very small one. Very, very small one. However, I'm still suspecting that chip right there, that UC3842, might be 5V standby. I'll have to look out for a data sheet and find out for sure. Let's have a look at the outputs on this thing. Chain X capacitors, one's bulging. This thing actually does not have DC to DC conversion for the 3.3V rail. Notice the 3.3V coil there to the right. Look at the size of that main coil. That is terrible. And they call this a 400W power supply? What a joke. What a joke, I can definitely say. And let's have a look at our secondary side of rectification. The device on the far left is a SBR 1060 CT. That goes to, I believe, our 12V, so I believe that's a 10 amp component, so we have a 10 amp 12V rail. In the center we have a what I believe is an M3R30 60PT, so 30 amps going to the 5V. Of course, yeah, this thing's engineered as if it was 2001 and not 2008 when this thing was actually made. And the device to the far right, I can't really see because of that coil in the way, but I can just bend it right out of the way. How pathetic. It's either a 3 or a S. I see a 20 in there, so obviously that's a 20 amp. Can also have a 20 amp 3.3V rail, 30 amp 5V rail, and 10 amp 12V rail. Now let's go ahead and grab. Let's go and have a look at this again. It claims 16 amps on 3.3V. It's actually the label's correct there. It connected a little more than that. The 5V is correct. It has a 30 amp component right there. However, a 12V is an epic fail. It claims to do 18 amps when it has a 10 amp rectifier. So yeah, this thing can't do its rated power. Not even close. But yeah, this is typical for PowerMax and Leadman. Pretty typical for them. Here's one more look. That transformer there is an epic fail. Look how small it is. Itty bitty. Very tiny. There's your quality control pass sticker there on the lower capacitor there. Now either that little device on the right again, as I mentioned, is a transistor or it might be a diode. I'm not really sure. It has 3 terminals, so I can pretty much assume it's probably a transistor. But before I end this video, let me look up that UC3842 to find out what that is. That UC3842 is our PWM controller. So this has a very pathetic 5V standby rail, 2 transistor design, using very shoddy components, even for that. So this means this power supply has a split between the PWM controller and the supervisory chip, which is right there, and that is a LP-7510, and on the bottom it says 0805G. Let me look that up. Okay, I looked up the specifics on that supervisor chip, and it only offers overvoltage protection, undervoltage protection, and short circuit protection. So we don't have overpower protection. So if you ever load this thing, it'll just go off an amazing fireworks show. So yeah, this is definitely ways to stay away from those cheap power supplies, especially those on Geeks.com. The A powers and the I think Blue Star or something like that. I think Blue Star and a few others, or Power Star. I can't remember. Weird names. But anyways, this is I didn't bother to test this thing because I'm sure if it works, it's probably not doing very well. With one of the capacitors already failed. So anyways, it's fair to share this with you. So that way, for those who are new to power supplies, you can learn why you should stay away from cheap units like this. Oh, one more thing. I just want to show you guys, as I was tearing this thing apart to get the switch out of it. That's the only thing that's even worth a crap in this thing. Oh, there's a fan if you want to see it too. It just says fan. But have a look at this connector. The Maniac Atx Connector. Look at the label. It says -5 volt, 0.5 amps, but the thing is, this power supply does not have a -5 volt rail. The white wire is missing from the connector. Now, I just want to see if the PCB even has a spot for it. It's usually located along the back side over here. I see where -12 volt goes in. I don't see a -5. However, this thing still is a piece of garbage. That's funny. The label is that generic. They probably slapped this label on probably, I don't know, 10 to 15 different units. Different kinds of units. The unit claims they have a -5 volt rail, but the power supply don't even have a -5 volt rail. Epic fail. Any questions or comments? Feel free to ask, and thanks for watching.